video is exploding, but there is no widely accepted audience metric. How to gauge performance? I would now like to invite on stage Mr. Alex Hayward, Senior Business Development Manager, Adobe Primetime Video Solutions, Ms. Madhu S. Datta, Head Marketing and Digital Raymond, Mr. Sunil Kataria, Business Head, India and SAARC countries, Godrej Consumer Products, Mr. Ashish Basin, Chairman and CEO, South Asia, Dentsu Aegis Network and Chairman, Postoscope and MKTG Asia Pacific would be moderating this session. Can you please have you all on stage?
Good evening, everybody. We're very happy to be here with a very different, a panel from very different backgrounds, but each one of them masters at what they do. So I'm hoping that we learn a lot in this. Before we start off, before I hand it over to the panel, I think perhaps measurement of video is one of the key things that is going to determine how well video does in terms of advertising dollars in the years to come in India. And the reason for that is that, like Shrikant said just before, digital is such a measurable medium. By definition, you can measure almost everything of it and know all of it. But somehow what digital sometimes fails to recognize is that it is a part of an ecosystem. So advertisers, marketers, and we have representing two very big brands here, have grown up in a system where they're more familiar with television, they're more familiar with rating points. So you cannot have a measurement system. If it is one currency, it's one currency. You cannot have a measurement system where left hand doesn't talk to the right hand. While it doesn't need to be identical, there needs to be some sort of a way where the advertiser in their mind can bring some sort of parity between the various media that they use. And I think sometimes video measurement suffers from that, and perhaps the biggest need of the hour for us as an industry, advertising industry, is to try to find measurable parameters where you can correlate one thing to the other. If you look at all media planning theory anywhere in the world, it is based on effective frequency and recency. Basically, effective frequency means that, again, I'm simplifying it, that you must see an ad, a video ad, a visual ad, at least 3 times for it to be effective. And if you see it beyond a certain number of times, depending upon your objective, let's say beyond 6 or 8 or 10 times, then there's a bit of a wastage. Now, if you look at a scenario, so therefore, 20,000 media planners are working with all sorts of BARC data, this data, that data, to make sure that the visual ad, the television ad, is seen between 3 to 6 times or 3 to 8 times or whatever is their thing, right? But what they're forgetting in the context of today is that I might have seen it 6 times and therefore been a very good media plan, but I might have seen it 5 more times on Facebook, which at the moment is not recorded anywhere. While the Facebook is measuring video and you can get very good sort of parameters and 3 seconds, who sat for how many seconds, who saw, etc. But the left hand is not talking to the right hand, so I'm not able to bring it together. I feel video advertising in India will take to the next step, the next big leap in advertising dollar, only when we move away from television planning to video planning. To a consumer, a screen matters less and less. If you're using a television, if you're seeing an ad on television today or you're seeing an ad on your iPad today, as a consumer, it's starting to matter less and less. To an advertiser, this will start making sense. This will start making giving them confidence to put big dollars behind it when we are able to move in from television planning to video planning. For that to happen, there needs to be a standardized, agreed measure of video in digital, which then must have some way of correlating to measures on television. And B, there has to be a face on the system. At the moment, every supplier of video platform, let's say a Google or a Facebook or YouTube or whatever, have their own metrics. You can't have a country where dollars pounds, euros, everything is being used as a currency. So I think the big thing that we have to go to, in my view, is to see how can we get that one currency and how do we get that currency to start talking to television, because the consumer is the same, the advertiser is the same. So on that count, what I'd like to do is to request my co-panelists to give their points of view, to see what they feel about the measurement systems and how and the prevailing conditions and what their views are and how this can be taken forward. Because I think almost everybody, I'm sure all of them will agree, and I'm sure all of you agree, almost everybody agrees that with the increasing bandwidths and falling data rates, video is the next big explosion that is happening around us. If we don't get this right, it will somehow miss the bus on attracting advertising dollars commensurate to what its position is. So I think if the other two panelists don't mind, we can begin with the lady first, and maybe I will request Madhu to give her opening comments.
Thank you, Ashish. Good afternoon, everyone. It's quite a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I think this topic is extremely enriching and exciting, especially for me, the category that I handle, and which is in men's fashion. And today, yes, we are marketeers. We've been used to capturing a thought, capturing a story in 30 seconds over the last very many years. But, when it comes to, getting into something which is more beyond just a story, but also, resonating with each and every consumer mindset, which is all about dressing up. I represent Raymond, which is all about a story about the complete man. I think video brings in a very beautiful platform. Digital video brings in a very beautiful platform to narrate the story. And the brand story, I think it is very beautifully, it can get integrated and, brought out to the right kind of audience. And from that perspective, we are taking a lot of endeavor in creating a lot of content around it. And it gives us a lot of leeway in terms of not only making a certain, transactional kind of an advertising, but also, pointing out to every emotiveness of what we talk about in terms of bringing the ethos of the brand or the content that we talk about. I think having said that, we feel that it is one of the most exciting platforms to be, but it also depends on what kind of audience you want to address. So it gives us the liberty in terms of moving from different platforms, whether we want to do a reach management kind of a program or we want to simply visually delight the people. We are a set of individuals, we have all grown up in terms of, life is all about beautiful storytelling. And I think, the entire video, this platform that we are talking about today, it gives us the opportunity to do that very beautifully. And, that's where we feel that taking different platforms, we look at it from aspect of whether we want to, plant this video through a Facebook kind of interface, or whether it's a, Instagram, or to go to very targeted portals, which are, actually addressing a very, very niche audience. But for us, it's more the quality of people that is going to be addressing our messaging to is what we look at this point in time, because that is not really a mass kind of a thing, but at end of the day, it also considers who are considering the brand, who are considering the different nuances of what the brand stands for. I think given that thought, it is a very potent and extremely potentially high medium for us at this point in time, and we are taking all endeavors in terms of creating content and creating a story, because if somebody wants to come in, wants to be, walking out from our brand, from, being dressed up in the most immaculate manner, there's a beautiful story that we can take. And video platform gives us the opportunity to do that. And we are all gung-ho about that.
Thank you, Madhu. I think that must be music to ears for a lot of practitioners of digital video here. Alex, you bring us a different perspective, A, from a different geographical point of view, and B, your company is sort of at the cutting edge in many ways on this. So what is your take specifically with measurement as the key part which we're discussing today?
Sure. As you say, we're approaching this more from a technology partner perspective, but that kind of gives us an interesting view because we are neither on the buy or the sell side. We're somewhere in the middle, and our vested interest is actually how do we connect those two sides better, and measurement's a big part of that. The friction point that we're very aware of, particularly in video, is that we are certainly moving from a traditional approach of buying, which is content as a proxy for audience based on panel data, all usually purchased upfront, in some countries 100% sold 9 months before TV goes out, mass purchased by agencies, to a world of digital video where that inventory is dynamic and fast and difficult to forecast and therefore difficult to buy and sell. And so the opportunity for us and Adobe is that we really understand data and we understand audiences. So what we can do is, rather than using that content methodology, we can actually now properly measure an audience. And by measuring that audience and by understanding that audience, we can offer an opportunity to the seller, because we can say, right, now you can package that inventory in a way that A, your buyer will understand, B, that your buyer can value, because you can put a physical dollar amount on that inventory, and C, that is ultimately measurable at the end. So I'm buying against an audience, I can see it execute an audience, and I have proof that audience comes back. That doesn't change the reality of that's sort of a panacea, but the reality is that we have Nielsen, we have Comscore, we have Barb, we have Bark, we have Kantar, and buyers want to buy across multiple regions with multiple measurement. So the other problem we're trying to solve is, how can we create consistency whilst also keeping to those old rules? So we're trying to give the world everything. Modern measurement, modern analysis, modern selling, but at the same time the old stuff too, so nobody gets too freaked out too quickly.
Thank you for that perspective, which I think will be very useful as we take the discussion forward. Sunil, you come from FMCG, which you're looking after. My belief is that they were perhaps the last adopters of digital video in that sense, because I think they were, and many of the companies still continue to be over fascinated with TV, so to speak. I get a sense that's changing, and that's changing rapidly. You're right in the heart of it. What do you feel, and is measurement playing a role in that, or does it have a bigger role to play? What are your perspectives on this?
Yeah, okay, so I'll talk from I read the India business, so I'll talk from a business point of view rather than a marketing point of view. That's what we talk to our teams. I think first of all, I agree that FMCG maybe did not move into the digital space at the pace that other, let's say, technology-based industries moved. And there was a reason for that. Was FMCG is most comfortable with TV, which is the video format. And video took some time to take off in India. Finally, it was only initially about YouTube. There was nothing else. And you also didn't know really how to measure YouTube as a measure itself. So I think that's one of the reasons. It really took us some time. But if you ask me, one perspective which one has to keep in mind in India, if you see all the reports which come, whether it's a Pitch Madison report or the other advertising spend reports come, every year print is ahead of TV in India still, just about by little margin. Now that's a very big dichotomy, that on one hand we are definitely obsessed with such micro planning in media, which we do really fascinatingly well in TV, but at the same time there's an equally large print industry which actually has not had any measurement so far in India. So I think it's a matter of, it's a dichotomy I have not been able to answer myself why this happens. So I think it's a matter of getting used to staying with ambiguity, which I think is important in any industry. Now, what I feel is happening is, and we have done a lot of work with Mindshare, who's our digital agency, and many others. I don't think so globally anywhere a common metric system has still evolved for video. And other markets are much, much more evolved than India. So I think it will be amateurish for us to start expecting that you will get a measurement system across OTTs, across YouTube, across Facebook, which will have a single currency very near in the future. It may evolve, but I don't see it happening for the next 2 to 3 years, definitely, if you ask me. Now, how, let's say, Bark's digital measurement system evolves, which is still, I think, at least 2 years away, will maybe set the tone for India as to how it goes about. And incidentally, since I'm on the Bark board, I also know that's still some time away, So I think the question for all of us as marketeers is, okay, do you want to really get hung up only on measurement in the conventional system, or do you want to actually look through this measurement on video through a very different lens? And my take on is that actually our lens of utility of digital video needs to change from reach frequency. Well, actually, let me tell you, I'll be the first one to ask my marketing team to say, hey, what's the impact of this in the business? But at the same time, I think I would give them this leeway that, okay, let's understand what is the consumer behavior we can impact with digital rather than just reach frequency measurement. And I think that's the biggest power in digital video which is emerging. We need to, like, there was some presentation when I entered through Unruly, which I was sensing, which was talking about how Indians react to an emotional content so differently from the rest of the world. I mean, those are the insights which actually are important for us. Similarly, I mean, there are various theories which move around that, okay, the first 3 seconds are most important in a video on digital. While at the same time, you have another theory moving that, oh no, I think it doesn't matter, even a 15-second would work as long as it's emotionally engaging. So I think what we need to understand is the power of a digital video in impacting these kind of consumer behaviors rather than just going with brass tacks of pure play reach frequency. And that I would encourage the teams to get into. Second thing which I would put a lens on digital videos, because finally we all have to justify the money. It can't be free lunches anywhere. I can't certainly have at the same time, while I encourage this, I certainly can't sanction to my team, okay, go and spend 30% of your monies on digital without giving me any correlation at all. That's also the reality of life. So what I would expect teams to do is, I think a lot of piloting and experimentation needs to happen. Because the beauty of digital is, your results are here and now, right? And that I think we need to get used to, that in a conventional TV media plan, your plan versus actuals will come after 2 weeks, and that's what we are used to. Here it can come after 2 days, or maybe even earlier. And that encourages you to say, okay, I'll try this mix. Does this have some impact which I can put on some metrics? And I start learning over a period of time what broadly works for us, or which brand. I think that broadly works kind of learning is important rather than being very fine-tuned in the reach frequency way, is where I would say.
Thank you, Sunil, for your perspective. Just building upon what you said and trying to take it to a slightly different, take the discussion to a slightly different level. One of the things that digital video allows you to do, which perhaps television didn't because it was such a broadcast medium, is actually, in theory, I should be able to modify my creative almost to an individual level, right? Because it's digital, you have such a deep knowledge of your consumer, so you must almost be able to make one creative for one person, almost sort of tailor cast in theory. But even if you don't get to that level, at least you can dynamically change, which is already happening, a lot of your creative to suit a customer segment in that sense. Now, are we as a system, and I'll first ask this question in the Indian context and then perhaps in the international context, are we as a system geared up to do this? We are used to producing 1 crore and 3 crore rupee commercials. We are used to taking weeks and months and to research our advertising and so on and so forth. This obviously needs nimbleness, relying on your gut, experimentation, intuitiveness, something that you were alluding to, so that you're able to take quick decisions and eventually almost real-time decisions in that. So where are we placed on that as a country? Perhaps you could start building on it since you touched upon it.
Yeah, okay. I think there you have to, it's a completely different mindset. And I think you're right. Sometimes these conventional brand mindsets don't work. I'll give one live example of a brand we have in-house. And some of you, I hope most of you have heard of this. This brand called Be Blunt. This is a brand which, which we're working closely with Aduna Akhtar, who's the founder of this salon chains. And we now work out the retail side of FMCG products and Be Blunt. And what we realized that this is a product brand we have to build a lot digitally. We are pretty clear right from beginning. It's a premium hairstyling brand. Something which, if you ask me, a company like Godrej is in mass end products, we realized this is actually, we never played this game. So what we did, and when we realized that we have to do it digitally, our Be Blunt marketing team actually is not housed in the GCPL marketing team. Okay, sorry. So the Be Blunt marketing team is not housed in the same structure as the, let's say, conventional marketing team. That's the first thing we took a call. We said, because this mindset is so agile and has to be so nimble. Secondly, we realized that the content side of this has to move very fast. So the Be Blunt marketing team actually has only one brand manager with a conventional marketing profile. The rest of the people in that team are 2 content creators, which we hired from outside, and they're part of the marketing team. We have got somebody from a digital background who's actually in-house, and we have got tie-ups with 3 or 4 production houses, which is a deal, which is a turnkey deal that we can make so many videos over a period of next 6 months. And I can tell you over the last 1 year, the team turned around 65 videos, contents, over a period of 365 days. And among all our measures that we see, it is one of the most active and most watched brand in the hair care space actually in India today. But the learning for us from very clearly is your marketing definition of the team that you want to have is to be very different. And that you take. Secondly, you have to give them huge amount of freedom and liberty and maybe let them experiment a lot. And this is a very different marketing team that we have. In fact, today we use BBlunt example, and there are a lot of learning which BBlunt is able to transfer to many of our conventional brands. So I think that's the way we have to do it.
Thank you for sharing that. Madhu, what about your perspective? Your brand has a lot more of emotional involvement. It's probably much more high value compared to some of the FMCG. What do you feel about this?
Again, coming to video, I think the one thing I completely agree with you is in terms of you need to think very unconventionally. The typical marketing format of working on a TV commercial is something that we need to be, completely staying away from. And it's not that we need to do some 200 researches to come to a conclusion or, get into the insight. I think it's more working on the softer aspects of the brand. It's working on how to create content and how to create that engagement. I think that's the most important thing because we are in the business of making men look good looking, or dressing up their wardrobe. I think that is the insight that we are working on in terms of when we create the videos and all that. It is not really how much, and it's not really an ROI based at this point in time. It is more creating that impression, creating that entire content where people will actually entice the consumer. I think that is our most important thing in terms of in a video, which a 30-second TV commercial doesn't give us. 30-second TV commercial is very message-oriented. Here we are actually living the life of the complete man and showing each and every aspect of dressing up. And that gives us the leeway in terms of, very seamlessly put in each and every category of the wardrobe beautifully. And that's all. That's what we are looking at. It's not what it will give me, how many numbers, but eventually it should drive a conversation, eventually it should engage the consumers, eventually it should emotively connect to the heart and soul of the brand. I think that's exactly what our endeavor is. And we are looking at, we touch upon a lot of festivals, because these are occasions. Again, apparel is something where, it is an occasion-specific buy, and we make sure that, different touch points, different regional occasions are being touched upon, and these are the most beautiful ways that a video can emote and, give those emotions and what connected to the kind of category or the ensembles or the kind of wardrobe that we can bring on board. I think that's the aspect we are looking at. We have a in-house completely digital team because we don't want to just give it to a conventional advertising agencies because, this has to be continuously churned out, and that's exactly the way we work out. So we have a plan of a calendar in terms of what are the different festivals, what are the different collections, and therefore what are the different ways that we can project and bring the message out which beautifully entices consumer to end of the day, get into a trial, walk into the store, talk about that collection, which is our entire endeavor, which a research can't deliver, one has to go with gut feel. I think that's something that we have realized in this particular medium, and then use multiple different platforms within, and then how we can very nicely use the social media platform depending on what exactly we have put ourselves, what kind of objectives against those parameters. I think that's where, whether it's a Facebook where we want to reach out on a particular new collection wise, or whether it's Instagram or a YouTube. I think that's what we talk about. And we also work very closely with different relative, fashion portals, because that's where we have the captive audience, because they are in tuned in terms of wanting to know what a wardrobe is all about, because men's fashion is not as evolved as women's in India. It is growing, it is like still at a very, very nascent stage. So what kind of partners we work around in terms of creating this content, but where to take this content to get the right audience is also very important to look at this point in time.
Thank you, Madhu. Alex, some of the work that we see internationally really mind boggles us. Good example. One of them, you remember the Oreo thing at the Super Bowl where it was so instantaneous, real-time advertising. It is done by my own agency there, but I have 1,000 people in India. We've got leading agencies, iSobar, iProspect, this and the other, sitting down trying to do it. But hand on heart, I don't think we're geared up enough to do it, even with best of the chaps here. Because obviously it needs, this customization needs a lot more of research, a lot more of pre-planning. For it to look, it almost has to be rehearsed enough for it to look that it happens spontaneously in some ways. What's the trick? What's the secret sauce? Is there something we as a country are missing? Are there some learnings that you can share on it?
I somewhat disagree with your premise that we're doing it way better than you guys, for starters, or anybody's doing it any better than anybody particularly. I think your original sort of hypothesis that, you know, creating individual creative is possible is absolutely correct, but I also agree that it's massively onerous. So the reality of that ever being real, you know, Adobe has some tools for that, by the way, but I don't think that's realistic. In what I do think, though, right now there are some strategies you can employ to give the impression of personalization and an individualization by the clever use of existing creative libraries. So you guys do huge creative campaigns across many different brands, and you probably know that certain segments of your customer base will buy brands in groups. You know, somebody who uses this hair coloring will use this shampoo, and somebody who buys a lot of a particular men's clothing will also buy the matching socks and things like that. So what we can start to do is we can target that existing creative against individuals or audiences, and that's what technology starts to bring. So my campaigns start to appear far more personalized and individual, even though they're just using existing creative that you already have. And that's possible today. And then the next phase is storytelling. Facebook did some fantastic work with Toyota, where they told a story through creative. But that was actually a highly targeted story. They only told you the next stage when you'd seen the first stage, and they only showed 2 or 3 different versions of the stories. The story wasn't the same for everybody, but they targeted, I think, the under 20s and the under 30s and under 40s to change the story slightly. But the appearance to me as a consumer and as a receiver of the brand and the brand is, wow, this brand's incredibly intelligent. This is individual creativity. But it actually wasn't. It was clever use of large creative libraries to represent the brand that gave that impression.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing that, Alex. We're running out of time. I will just request the panelists, before I do a wind-up, if you had a magic wand and if you had to ask for that one thing in measurement in the context of digital video, what is it that you would ask for? What's your desire? What's your wish list? What do you see happening 3 to 5 years from now, which will really say, okay, now I think that's great, and now I'm going to really put my money behind this?
Okay. Actually, I would expect one thing, which actually I would say even conventional media has not been able to do. And I think that's a big opportunity for digital. Because if you see conventional media, the biggest parameter that we go by is, let's say, Nielsen in India and household panel. These 2 things. These are 2, but they're also delayed parameters, that the data you get is after 30 days and in some cases even after 50 days. One thing which I would expect digital media to deliver is give me linkage between the brand health parameters and the digital content. Actually, I would say in a much more real-time basis. Maybe not on the same day, but let's say if we can get it maybe in 48 hours to 72 hours, that will be my wish list. But that I think is a huge opportunity. Otherwise, we are all taking big media decisions on a 45 to 60 day lag time basis. That's the reality of our life today.
Good point. And I think in a medium like this, it's doable.
Yeah.
Madhu, what about you?
See, in terms of the digital media, video creating that entire aura and enticing the consumers, my thing is going to be that immediately, obviously, end of the day, we are all doing this so that we acquire newer set of consumers. So our thing is going to be that customization and the personalization that we show in terms of on the video and the entire content of it. How does that get translated in terms of the consumer, almost you're calling and say, you know what, that is what I wanted. So that kind of, obviously, it is a wish list at this point in time. But as we said, that we have started the storytelling, and we hope that we walk that journey and reach there faster.
Thank you. Alex?
What would I like to see? I would like to see, so I think it would be great if we can get to an agreement around viewability and things like that. But in my experience and what I've seen around the world is that that's never going to be enough. We actually now have to understand viewability and measurement against specific audiences. Young people skip over ads, but they still absorb them. Old people don't absorb them. And so we need to start making those distinctions. Viewability could be different across different demographics.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a good point, Alex. Thank you for sharing that. As we come to the end of the panel, and I have about 20 seconds to do this, I'll just try and recap 2 or 3 key points that the panelists have made. I think one, almost everybody seems to agree that digital video has a huge role to play, but the measurement of it is going to be very, very critical. And the point which Sunil made, and actually all the 3 panelists made, the real-timeness of data is going to be of much more importance. It's an opportunity where we are used to getting data 30 days, 60 days later, that you're able to get that information much earlier. And if it can talk to other parts like brand health or television measurement, etc., that will be a big plus. I think another key point which Madhu made was that you've got to have a different mindset. And that whole bit about personalization of communication or any other bit, the mindset that you need to have cannot be the same mindset that we've been using for the last 30 or 50 years for television and print advertising. It has got to be a very different approach. And the example that Sunil shared, that their Be Blunt marketing team has content guys in it, just one traditional kind of marketing guy and 2 content guys as a part of it, I think is a sign of times to come. And Alex gave us to realize that how when you're looking at different segments, they are not necessarily absorbing advertising or digital video in the same manner. So his example of how a young person would take it differently and an older person would consume differently. I hope that we are able to get to a measurement system or a research or something which is able to discriminate between that and not treat audiences as just one universal mass segmented only by age or sex or income or etc., etc. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to us, and a big thank you to the panel for sharing such valuable inputs with us. Thanks very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, moderator, Mr. Ashish Basi. And thank you, panelists, as well. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to present you all with small mementos. Hope you guys enjoy these candid clicks. Thank you so much once again. Thank you for coming.